Hello and welcome to the Forest Kitchen with me, Tom Buckley, otherwise known as Plant-Based Bloke on Instagram, and we're going to be showing you how to make some gorgeous southern fried oyster mushrooms today. Very good for imitating a chicken-like texture, but we're none of the death. So let's see how it goes. So the first thing that I'm going to do is get our corn on the cobs, cut these in half, and just throw them into this pan, boiling water. A little bit of salt in there just to give it a bit of flavouring. 1 onion, pretty simple to be honest. Just peel the onion now. Always keep them in half, do nice little slices like that, and then slice them last. So you're not having to cry constantly when you're doing your onions. Makes it a lot easier, a lot quicker. Right, so I'm just going to take a couple of sticks of celery, chop the ends off, don't want the woody bits. I'm just going to slice them a few times down the centre just to get them, and then get a nice fine dice. I always find that celery gives it a really nice earthy kind of fulfilling flavour to it. You could just use onions with this, but I think this really does set it off well. It's used in a lot of Southern American cooking. Onions, I've just sliced these down the side like that, if you can see that. That way you're not having to cry when you're cutting them as much. And I'll just show you, get a really nice easy dice with no fuss at all. So we've got our veg for our gravy sorted. Just going to throw a little bit of oil in this pan. This is sunflower oil, but you can use whatever oil you fancy as long as it's not going to give it a strong flavour, because you really don't want the oil flavour getting into your gravy in this one, to be honest. On the subject of being a messy cook, shout out to the missus for cleaning every pot that I've ever used. You're a good one, Kim. So I've just turned these down a little bit lower now, you can hear them sizzling away. They're starting to smell really nice and fragrant. As soon as they start to soften up and go a little bit translucent, I'm going to hit that with all the spices and the flavourings in there. In the meantime, I've got some really nice Tsp Piper potatoes, classic English chipping potatoes. I'm just going to go nice and thin, so really nice and easy to cook when they're nice and thin. So I actually started cooking when I was probably about 3 years old with my granddad. My granddad always loved his cooking. A lot of traditional kind of British food, but he also loved Indian food. Yeah, it was just, you know, my earliest memories cooking was just messing about using kind of food waste, you know, cold potatoes, pepper seeds, stuff like that. To make these daft little you know, meals for me, and I thought I was cooking when I was 3 years old. And yeah, it soon progressed from that point to wanting to cook proper food that I could actually cook and I could give my granddad to eat and stuff like that. So I've just absolutely loved cooking all my life. Since I've gone vegan, it's really sparked my cooking interest again, and I love it. You know, you find me in the kitchen, I'm at my happiest, you know what I mean? Right, so these are looking a bit softer now, so I'm pretty happy with those. I'm going to hit these with some flavour and just keep it cooking nice and gentle. So I've got some absolutely gorgeous spices here by the Forest guys. So I've got some nice smoked paprika, 1 teaspoon of paprika, teaspoon garlic powder, oregano here, maybe a bit of a flat teaspoon on this one, it can be quite overpowering. So a bit of parsley, if you've got some growing in your garden. 1 of those. It's pretty much 1 teaspoon of all the spices, to be honest. We've got a little bit of cayenne pepper, 1/4 teaspoon in there. A little bit of pepper, 1/4 teaspoon in there. Lovely organic chives. I'm going to throw those in there. They're going to give the onions just a little bit of a boost in flavour. I love chives. Last couple, thyme. I absolutely love the smell of thyme. It just transports me back to being in my granddad's garden when I was about 5 years old. Big thyme bush in there, just smells gorgeous. Can't get enough of this stuff. I think my cooking style is definitely really eclectic. I just like cooking lots of different varied things. I get bored if I tend to cook the same thing over and over again, even if that's just a cuisine. You know, I don't like to cook Indian food all the time or English food. I like to keep it varied. I'm 27. You can probably tell by my dodgy accent that I'm from a very small city up in the north of England called Hull. That's why I don't pronounce my H's properly, but there we are. I'm going to get some Marmite. Just going to go in with 2 tablespoons of that, and like that. This is looking really good now. We're looking really thick, kind of like a really thick kind of stew. That's literally just the celery, the onions, spices, Marmite. All we need to do now is just add a little bit of flour. So if you're familiar with cooking, you'll probably recognise this as a bit of a cowboy's roux. So normally you just kind of you'd start it with a bit of butter and then go for a bit of flour. But in this case, I'm going straight in with the oil, the flavours, the veggies, everything straight off the bat. And then I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of flour to that. That's just plain flour. And that's just going to thicken that up, make it change the colour slightly. It's going to make it go really sticky. I'm just going to give that a couple of minutes. Right, so I've got the gravy base really thick now. It's almost like a dough. So it's definitely time to hit it with some soy milk now. So I'm just going to pour about half of that in there. I cook every day at home, if not twice a day for lunch as well. It's usually something fairly easy for lunch, obviously, but yeah, I love cooking. I do all the cooking at home. I'm just going to add some really nice organic vegetable stock in there. Don't need to thicken it up too much because we're going to throw it through the blender. It's looking a little bit too thin. I thought it was going to be absolutely perfect, but it's just looking slightly too thin. So I'm just going to thicken this up with a little bit of corn flour. 2 tablespoons of corn flour in there. I just want to make a nice opaque white paste, almost like a kind of a paint. Once that's nice and thin, nice and milky, and we're just going to keep adding and stirring until we get absolutely perfect texture. We're just going to make the batter now. This is just some straightforward plain flour, half a teaspoon black pepper in there. I'm going to go in with oregano again, so all of these are just interchangeable with what I used in the gravy. So we've got thyme there, that was oregano before that, a few chives, cayenne, this one's crucial, you only need a touch because it is really, really spicy. Garlic powder, that's an absolute must. We're going to go in pretty heavy with this. Probably 2 teaspoons worth. Onion powder, I'm going to do the same, about 2 teaspoons. Smoked paprika. I just can't get enough of this stuff, I just love smoked paprika. It just gives everything such a gorgeous smoky kick. And the final one, just a little bit of dry parsley. Just going to mix that up now. And now we're just plenty of salt. So I'm going to add about a teaspoon's worth of salt. So that's going to be our dry mix. Pour about half of that into a separate one. And that can be our wet mix. So we've got about 50-50 there. The one that's got slightly more in, I'll keep that one for coating the mushrooms. So with this, I just need to add some soy milk to this. I think the right thickness is similar to a pancake batter or something that you would you do fritters with or something like that. It wants to be about that type of thickness. So keep them nice and clustered up like that. I'm going to throw them in there. You just have to be so gentle at this process. So we're looking pretty good now. I'm just going to set these aside now. And we want to leave those to rest for about 20 minutes at least. Crucial part now. Take a nice cluster, just throw it in your flour. I like to keep one wet hand and one dry hand so that you're not getting too messy. So I'm going to drop the first one in now. Look at that beautiful sizzling. I'm going to chuck all these in. Just be careful not to overcrowd the pan. So we've got every element finished now. We've got mushrooms, aka chicken. We've got the chips, we've got the corn on the cob, gravy. It's just a matter of plating everything up now. So I'm just going to pour the gravy into this dish here. A few chives on the top. This is some Oyster garlic pepper, really, really nice seasoning, really pungent, a little bit salty, a little bit spicy, perfect for this. Right, so we're all good, everything's finished, nothing left now but to dig in. I mean, just look at the texture of that. How chickeny does that look? It's just crazy. Thanks for joining me. This is the Forest Kitchen. This is vegan fried chicken or fried oyster mushrooms if you prefer to call it that. Absolutely delicious. Thanks.